Well, this is DragonStomper for the Atari 2600. This is definitely the first proper RPG that's ever been on a console. The plot is that there's an evil magical dragon that's doing evil magical dragon shit. We are the DragonStomper, and we must go find the dragon in his cave and kill him. Or, well, at least just destroy his magic amulet. Okay, so I'm just this tic-tac guy, and I'm in a forest. You can run around and discover stuff and see buildings and bump into stuff. If you press the button, you'll bring up this context menu. Now, because the Atari only has one button on a controller, the inputs for the context menu are actually just directions on the joystick. You're going to find some random encounters. Now, either an enemy will be hiding in a tree or a bush or a lake or a building or something, or they might just come out randomly. The combat is about what you'd expect. You and the enemy just swap blows until one of you dies. There's a really good variety of enemies, and the game actually supports fighting groups of enemies, which I would not expect. The sound effects are decent, and there's a surprising amount of music. I also love that you can skip through the text in the music. That's a surprisingly modern feature. Anyway, so after you kill something, it might drop gold or it might drop an item. There's no experience points in DragonStomper. Okay, so that's all fine and dandy, but what do I actually do? If you explore enough and get to the edge of the world, you'll find this bridge where you will encounter a bridge guard. He says he wants a piece of ID before you can pass, and so this is obviously the main goal. You also have the option of kicking his ass, but he's really strong and it's probably never worth it. Or you can pay him an absurd amount of gold, which is also probably not even worth it. So I guess that the quest is on to find a piece of ID. If you explore enough, you'll come by this glowy castle. Now, you've encountered other castles, sure, but this one is glowy. So you open the castle and you're ambushed by these maniac enemies. You slaughter them like primitive screwheads, and you get a piece of paper. Make your way back to the bridge, and that's this mystery solved. You can now progress to the next area of the game. So getting across the bridge and progressing to the second area of the game is actually very easy. I managed to do it by accident on my very first time playing this. I'm going to spoil something for you though, but the success of your entire playthrough through the whole game lives and dies on how well you do in the first area. I definitely think that that's a strength of the design, because you can have absolutely zero knowledge of the strategy of this game, and still a first-time player can easily make it to the final boss. You're not going to kill him though, but you can make it to him pretty easy. Okay, so you have two stats. You have strength and dexterity. Strength is basically your hit points, and dexterity just dictates your hit chance. They start off at a maximum of 23. I don't know why they chose the number 23, but that might be to make it intentionally confusing. So you're going to want to memorize how much damage enemies do and constantly be keeping an eye on your strength. I think the toughest enemies are these warrior enemies. They can do a ton of damage. If your strength is getting down to the point where you can be one or two shotted by something, you need to find a way to heal yourself fast. There are these churches littered around the map, and you can donate 200 gold, 15 gold, or pray. Praying does nothing, and praying always does nothing. That's quite a nihilistic detail if you ask me. If you donate 15 gold, you might get some strength back, but it's not worth it. If you donate 200 gold, you will get all of your strength back. Some of the churches may require a key to get into, so you can last quite a long time in the overworld just by donating money to churches. But your supply of gold will dwindle, and eventually you're going to have to make an exit to the next area. Now, during the course of casual play, you will accumulate an absurd number of items. There are chests which can be unlocked with keys, and they contain gold and an item maybe. But there's just all kinds of crap in this game. There's crosses and staffs and potions and charms and rings. You can use them, sure, but they feel weird. They all feel weird. Everything you use in this game feels weird. The items in this game have no clear use. They do kind of have a use in the second area of the game, and I always thought that they were meant to be useful in the second area, and that's why I hoarded them all. But it wasn't until my very last playthrough that I discovered what they're for. So when you use an item, it may raise or lower one of your stats. So you have to go through this experimentation period where you try out every item, and then check your stats right after. But you have to make sure to check your stats before you try to use the item. Otherwise, you just won't know what your stats were to begin with. And then you gotta remember which item does what, and farm the items that help you. and hold on to the items that hinder you. There's also this hand axe item that just by having it on you increases your damage. I was always trying to use it in a fight, but it feels weird. So when I use one of these crosses, not only is my maximum strength increased, but I don't have to pay $200 to get my health back. Now we're really cooking in this first area. Just hang out around here, get as much gold and as many stats as you can. Okay, I'm just going to take a second now to explain the state of Atari games. So in 1982, the average Atari game was total garbage, like just dog shit. If you put every single Atari game into a hat and pulled one out at random, it's probably going to be the worst thing you've ever seen. It's actually pretty funny that all of the most famous Atari games are famous for being bad. Now, there definitely were high-quality games. The only problem is that if you're at a store looking at games to buy, there's no way you can tell which ones are the good ones. And in my personal experience, all of the best Atari games are super obscure and they're things that no one has ever heard of, like DragonStomper. So with that said, I'm sure you can imagine how incredibly refreshing a game like this is. You know, something that's deep and layered and has multiple parts. In fact, the developer of this game is also responsible for another hidden gem on the Atari. I've mentioned it before in my video about why I hate classic arcade space shooters, but that game's called Communist Mutants from Space, and it's insanely high quality. Okay, so now we're in part 2. This is the Oppressed Village. It's windy out here. Yeah, the first thing you'll notice is just this crazy wind sound effect that's always playing. It's not as open as the previous section. This square is all you see, but it's got these stores that you can enter in to buy things. The whole premise of this area is that we need to get everything that we need in order to prepare for our fight with the dragon. There's 3 stores that sell different things, and there's soldiers that we can enlist to help us. Down here at the bottom is the Dragon's Cave. You can enter it at any time, whether you're prepared or not. When you go into a store, you can walk into an item to kind of select it, and then you can trade, and you can either pay for it with gold or try to barter one of your items. You can also sell your items. They usually go for 30 gold, and the hand axe goes for 20. Every item has some kind of use for fighting the dragon. And don't ask me how to enlist the men, because I have no idea. I never figured it out, and I beat the game without them. Now, of course, you don't know what the items are for, and it'll take multiple playthroughs before you really understand what you need and how much of it you need. It's really amazing how tactile and immersive this town is. There's just so many items and so many interactions. And on top of that, the collision detection in this game is amazing. I particularly like how the wind sound actually gets quieter when you enter a building. That's a really cool detail. Okay, so I got everything that I think I might need, and we're gonna head down into the cave for part 3. Before I hop in there, I'm gonna talk about the state of RPGs as of 1982. So there were open world RPGs kind of similar to this. The big ones so far were Ultima 1 and Ultima 2. The towns in Ultima 2 are really good and crazy immersive. And we also had Wizardry, which was just a pure dungeon crawler. Now, DragonStomper doesn't really hold a candle to the PC RPGs that were coming out. Everything that it does better than the PC games has to do with its playability and accessibility. This would definitely be a really good entry point to the RPG genre for someone who isn't a huge computer nerd with time to burn. I was only able to beat those games because I have no life. Anyway, into the Dragon's Cave. The first thing that you notice is that it is dead silent. If you keep walking, you'll get hit by these arrow dart trap thingies. At first, it seems like totally random or like it's unavoidable and you just take damage. But if you use the vision spell, which you bought from the town, right? You can see that there's actually particular places that you step on that activate the darts. So once you get past that, you get to these like purple arrow thingies. If they hit you, they do a little bit of damage, but they cause you to get sick and take fever damage. You can fix that with the medicine that you bought from the store. You did buy the medicine, right? After that, there's more darts and then more purple arrows. Then you get to this hole. This is the dragon hole. Before you hop in, you should probably pop a bunch of the elixirs that you bought to increase your dexterity. You did buy the elixirs, right? Okay, so time to jump in the hole. If you didn't buy the rope or the chain, you'll take damage. And here it is, the dragon. You can get some damage on him early on by shooting him with the bow. The fight with the dragon is very tactical. You can use all your spells and vitamins. You really have to keep an eye on your health. And this is definitely more of a like a Wizardry-esque kind of tactical fight. It's very different from anything in the first part. And if you play your cards right, and if you got the right stuff, and you're an experienced, knowledgeable DragonStomper, you can defeat the dragon. And then once you touch the amulet, you win the game. So overall, DragonStomper is insanely high quality. It's definitely a type of RPG that we haven't seen before this. It honestly almost feels like a proto-immersive sim. In the first section, you can either get the ID or kill the guard or pay the guard off. And then in the second section, there's all these things you can buy in different combinations of builds that you can try out. You can get through the traps as competently or incompetently as you want. And even the fight with the dragon is optional. You can use the stun spells and then use the unlock spell to get to the amulet. And it mentions in the manual that if you get the amulet and leave the dragon alive, you can rehabilitate the dragon. So there's just all these details and all these different little things and little considerations and just an incredible amount of variety. It really is a shame that this game isn't talked about more and cherished more.